listening and watching KMMU.org. That's Main Street Media, Utah. And this is the Liberty Moms Show. I'm your host, Dalane, England. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front. And we are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. And I am so thrilled for our lineup. We have several amazing guests today that you are going to love. We have two Liberty Moms. We are first going to welcome Kim Chandler. Kim is a member of the Granite School Board of Education. She earned her bachelor's degree from Southern Utah University. She's a mother of 3 children, and she has lived in Granite District for almost 14 years. And she is clearly passionate about parental rights, protecting children from the government overreach, and getting back to the basics in education, which is why we are so blessed and grateful that Kim is on the school board. And that is exactly what a school member should do, and what the job of a school member is to be passionate about parental rights, to protect children from, and our schools and our communities from government overreach, and getting back to the basics in education. So Kim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Dalane. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Now, there are so many issues that we can discuss on education because it's a pretty important topic, and it consumes the biggest budget, a bigger percentage of the state budget than any other single issue. But today we're not going to be talking about that. We are going to be talking about the new plans for the bathrooms, for the way they're laying out the bathrooms. And specifically, we're talking about the Granite School District plans. But what I have discovered is that other districts, I know Davis District, where I live, is also doing that, as well as several other districts are following the same plan. So first of all, tell us about this new layout for the bathrooms.
Absolutely. So in general, because the designs are not all exactly the same across districts, but generally speaking, these plans are to, you take a traditional restroom space, you replace the walls or portions of the walls with glass windows that you can see through that are transparent. In addition to that, changing the stalls to be floor-to-ceiling stalls. That's the general gist of the designs. In Granite specifically, and I believe what will happen in other districts as well, they are also using this model and then taking girls' and boys' restrooms and putting them together. So in this model with the glass walls and the floor-to-ceiling stalls, in our design specifically, we have about 13 stalls, and they will be labeled. These stalls will have labels on them. And so the individual stalls will be labeled for girls or boys, but the restroom itself will be a combined restroom. And so both girls and boys will enter into these open doorways. There's no doors on the entrances anymore, but they'll enter into the same restroom space. And then they supposedly will have to use a stall that has the appropriate designation on it. And then the hand washing area is a communal area as well inside that restroom. So that's the gist of the design. Again, there's some variations to that in different districts, but overall that's kind of where it's going.
Okay, so this is hearing you talk about the design and hearing about this design, this seems like a perfect place for somebody who wants to vape, because now they can go in and they have their own private stall, and they can go in there and vape. And so that's what it sounds like. It's like, oh, let's help them vape privately instead of openly. And then if you want to go in and do other nefarious things, you have your own private space. No one can really see underneath any inappropriate behavior that's happening inside there. And it does seem like, could 2 people go into the same bathroom stall together? Would that be a possibility, where you're kind of mixing them together? Could 2 people? So is it a perfect place to go in and have sex or mess around?
Unfortunately, I think it is. I think it enables that kind of behavior. The district might argue or debate this point, saying, well, we'll have cameras in the hallways and the glass walls allow us to see in as a deterrent, so that if someone does try that behavior, we'll be able to see who it was or catch that person, right? But once that stall door is closed, you can't see in. That floor to ceiling it's fully floor to ceiling. You can't see underneath. You can't see what's going on inside. And with that joint co-gender designation, no one will bat an eyelid when a girl and a boy walk in together to the restroom at the same time. So yeah, I think we're definitely enabling that kind of behavior. And it's an absolute risk of this design for sure.
Okay, so the proponents of this design, please explain to me why the proponents, because these are adults, these are people who have mental capacities to think things through. What are they thinking? Why are they thinking this is a good idea?
So it comes back to the behavior again, which you just brought up. Different issues might come in place of the behavior issues they're trying to address. But generally, the justification has been we have a lot of behavior issues in our restrooms. Things like vaping, like you mentioned, vandalism, bullying. Those are the most often cited issues that we're trying to address. And, I can see that we're trying to make an attempt to somehow deter that behavior. The problem, though, is, again, we might be switching out for other behaviors or enabling, number one. Number two, there has been no justification, no reasonable explanation given at all for how combining boys and girls restroom spaces is meant to address these behavior issues. There is no explanation or justification for that. So yeah, that would be their justification is trying to deal with behavior, but it does not explain, from my perspective, what they're actually doing.
I can't understand it myself, and I have talked to a few of the board members myself, trying to understand where they're coming from, and they do use this as a safety. And to me, I'm just like, I'm trying to understand, like, this seems to me like it actually makes our children less safe, not more safe. So to be clear, so that I just want to make sure everyone can kind of understand. So there'll be glass to go into the bathroom area. Then there'll be a common area of sinks. And there will be like glass between, like the sinks will be back to back and there'll be glass between them.
No, so there's no glass separating any portion of the restroom once you're inside it. The glass is only replacing portions of the concrete wall that would have been there before. So in our specific design, the part that reaches the hallway, that touches the hallway, there's a concrete wall halfway up and then a glass window the rest of the way up. And just behind that wall would be where all the sinks are. To either side of that is the two entrances you walk into. On one side is a concrete wall, and on the other side is a glass wall so that somebody down the hallway can see into the restroom. But it's basically just replacing some of that exterior wall with glass.
That then boys and girls enter the same area and then go to the boys' bathrooms or the girls' bathrooms.
Yes.
So
yes.
How would this work with someone who's suffering from gender dysphoria and they're confused about which sex they are and which bathroom to use? Then they would be able to just use whichever one they want to, I guess, whichever stall.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be any monitoring of whether somebody is using the correct stall, right? They can really go in and use whichever one they choose because no one's going to stop them from that. And so I think it's for individuals like that who that's their end goal, this is a perfect setup for them.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like, because I'm trying to figure out, like, why did they really design it this way? Why are we having the boys and the girls enter the same space? Yeah, it just seems very odd in this day and age when we're really trying to help children. We're trying to help them deal with the issues that they have at hand. This seems to me like we're supporting their issues rather than supporting them and helping them through their issues. It seems like it's maybe being pushed by the proponents of the transgender movement. Am I wrong? Am I making that up?
I would think that a reasonable person could come to that conclusion, right? Because again, there is no real rationale or justification for combining the genders here. I can say while it may be necessary to try to make adjustments to restroom designs to combat safety issues, there's just been no reasonable explanation for combining the genders, yet this is what we're doing. I'm with you. I think girls deserve spaces, their own private spaces. our students deserve not to be the subjects of efforts to reshape our cultural norms in this way. And again, I think without, in the absence of a reasonable explanation for why combining girls and boys is necessary to combat behavior issues, any reasonable person would come to the conclusion that that's the reason we're doing this, right? Is to try to adjust that culture, try to get boys and girls accustomed to using the same restrooms as step one. These things happen incrementally over time, these attempts to adjust our cultural norms. And so in my view, that's what this seems to be, and one of the reasons I'm so concerned about it.
Yes. Okay. I totally agree with you, because girls are very different than boys and men. And I know this is a generalization, which I don't really like to do, but let's just be honest. Generally, women, we're definitely without any case, women and girls are different than men and boys. We just are. We have a biological difference. We have psychological differences. We definitely have emotional differences. And I'd say that most women, and of course there are exceptions to that, but most women really have a need for privacy for multiple reasons. One, we are just generally more private with our bodies, especially when you're in elementary or junior high or high school, especially when you're growing up and going through puberty. You have an extra need for privacy. Your body's changing, your emotions are changing, you have physical things that are happening that really require you to have more privacy. A lot of times in the, from 10, 12, 14, 16, girls start their periods. Things happen, catch them off guard. That can happen at school without warning, and girls will need a private place where they can go take care of themselves. Now, all of that, they have a private little stall, wonderful, but they have to go out and wash everything up in a centralized location where everyone is there, no privacy to wash their hands or wash their panties out or wash up in a sink. Like, that just is communal. That is a culture change. That is a culture change. When right now what we're trying to do is help these children who are suffering from this, help them distinguish boys are boys, girls are girls. There is no way a boy can turn into a girl. There is no way a girl can turn into a boy. So the best way we help them is by being honest and truthful, sensitive and caring, but not, exposing them and not giving them no private place. I know when I was in junior high school, there were times when I just really needed to go. Something happened, girls are emotional. I went in the bathroom and just had a good cry, but I could go have a private place, go be by myself. And then I could go, the sinks are common for all the girls, but there were only girls. I could go wash my face with cold water, and girls would come in, and we could, I'd see girls in there. I could give them a hug. We could kind of cathart with each other. We could console each other. It's very different if you have boys in that space. It changes everything. Totally changes everything. I don't know how boys feel about girls going into their bathrooms, but I would assume, I guess I should ask my boys. I have 4 of them. Some of them, I haven't asked them lately. I haven't talked to them about this design. Some of them really think it's hilarious. Some of them just like, no, I don't want girls in my bathroom. So I think, like everybody, they kind of have their own, but I don't get the feel, having raised 4 boys, they don't have the same need for privacy that my daughters do or that I do. That's just a generalization, but I'd say it's pretty standard. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, on pretty much everything you said there. So I myself have experienced things when I was a young girl in high school, needing some privacy in the restroom because I had an issue. It happens more often than maybe people like to admit. And so privacy is a huge concern, and not having to expose themselves to boys, right? In those situations. We might argue that, well, there's other restrooms available in these buildings, and they could use one of those other restrooms instead if they're having such a situation. But I think the argument there is twofold. In rebuttal, number one being, why do we have the traditional restrooms still if these behaviors are so concerning that we need to have this new design in place? then why do we
Okay,
still have the traditional ones?
I want to talk about that because that's one of the things that the proponents of this are saying, well, you don't have to use it. There's other bathrooms. So there's still other options they can use, but they're saying the reason that they need this design is to curb bullying or vaping, which I do not see this curbing vaping. I think that does not make sense. This is very much designed to help people vape or smoke. It gives them private space to go do that.
I agree.
Because no one can see. And they're, a boy goes into a boy next to, now you've got perfect stalls. Where before you have privacy, but you can't just go in and smoke. Everyone in the bathroom can smell it. And they would know.
Right.
So anybody could go in there and say, hey, another student can go tell the principal or go tell somebody, hey, someone is in their stall smoking. Now it's going to be a lot harder to detect. This, to me, it facilitates that. So it doesn't make sense. Now it facilitates a dangerous position where a boy and a girl are, for rape
Right.
or messing around, even consensual. But they're saying, oh, there's other bathrooms. So yeah, make sense of that for me, Kim. They can choose to go elsewhere. Well, if it's so needed to have these bisexual bathrooms, how is having options going to curb the crime?
Well, exactly. And in that argument, if you follow that argument to its conclusion, say these new designs do curb the behavior, then you're making those old ones the hubs of terrible behavior, where anyone who doesn't feel comfortable in the new bathroom now has to be subject to that, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even if it did make sense, we are opening the door. We're opening the door and we're starting down a path of combining the genders in the restrooms. And I feel very, very strongly that that's intentional. We could have done this design. This is the point I come back to every time. We could have done this glass wall design with a wall in between, separating the male side from the female side and still keeping their own separate spaces. We could have done this glass wall design in separate restrooms, a male restroom and a female restroom, which is what they have done at other schools. There is no justification for combining the genders here.
For all of time through history, we've always, since we've ever had common areas with common bathrooms, we've always designated the boys or the men separate from the girls and women. So that has been a lasting, enduring thing. And now we have this transgender movement that is designed to muddle everything. And it is causing a lot of anxiety. It is causing a lot of confusion and a lot of emotional issues and problems as well as physical ones to our young people. And yet it just seems like, why are we not keeping them totally separate? And yet we see people they're denying that is the reason for this change. Am I right? Are they vehemently denying that is why we're making this change?
They're denying it. But again, at the same time, then why? Why did we do this? Why did we not put a wall? And there is no answer for that.
Okay. So, Kim, when did you first see these plans? When did these first come to you as a school board?
As a school board, that's a bit of a harder question because these plans have been in place for some time. I've been on the board for almost 2 years. This is my second year right now. And I asked about this a year and a half ago. I had a constituent come to me saying, I've heard this is happening. And so I went to our superintendent at that time and I asked specifically, is this happening? Are we building co-gender restrooms? That specific question. I was given a whole lot of information back about the behavior issues we're having. But in that same message, I was given justifications for why we would not combine men's and women's restrooms, why it would be a bad idea, why we would not do floor-to-ceiling stalls. So I was told in pretty clear terms that no, we're not doing it, and here's some reasons why we would never do it. And so at that time, I went back to that constituent and said, we're not. That's not in our plans. About a month or so ago, I was taking a tour of the new Cypress High School, along with some other board members and city officials were there as well. And we walked past one of these restrooms. And so that's when I first saw the glass wall, and it intrigued my interest. And I thought, what are we doing here? I asked a question about it. And in the discussion that followed from asking that question, that's when I found out we are actually intending to have girls and boys in the same restroom space. And so it's not been very long ago that I learned of this. I've seen a schematic in the past of this restroom, but that schematic never identified anywhere that this would be a co-gender restroom. And personally, I'm not that skilled at looking at schematics and realizing that walls would be glass or that kind of thing. So I did not know, even though I had asked plainly, I did not know until about a month ago. And so since that time, I've been trying very hard to bring awareness to what is happening, because I don't feel like the vast majority of the public has any idea that this is what we're doing. I've been working with other board members trying to explain my concerns. I've brought it up in board meetings. So I've been doing everything I can to try to get some traction on potentially changing what we're doing. But no, it's only been just over a month. So.
Wow. Okay. So just to make clear to everyone, the Granite School District, that you're in Salt Lake, but like what specific area of Salt Lake does Granite School District cover?
Well, we cover all the way, so from the west side, like Cypress area, all the way over to the east side, Cottonwood, Skyline, right? We start at about 2100 South, and then I forget exactly which street we end on, but we include Taylorsville High School, and areas down south there. We have a little carve out for Murray. Murray is its own school district. But we basically take, say, Taylorsville from east to west. So down to Taylorsville, up to 2100 South, and then east to west across the valley. It's a pretty large and diverse district in terms of, economic status.
Right. Yeah. Very
population,
diverse.
demographics. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So is it too late to do anything, Kim? Because it never is, but some people might feel like it's too late. So I have two questions. I'll start with that one. What can we, what can we do at this point about it? Because have they started the construction, or is it still a schematic, or where do we stand on that?
Construction is in process at both schools. Cypress is further ahead than Skyline is. Cypress, the entire campus is expected to be ready for use next fall. So they have constructed quite a bit. Doesn't mean it can't be changed, right?
Of course.
At any point, the design can be altered, even if they were fully constructed. We could still make a change. And there's a couple of ways we could change things. One could be we simply label the restrooms as entirely one gender, right? We have 3 of these in each school. 1 or 2 could be female, 1 could be male, right? The other option is we just put a wall down the middle. It doesn't take away anything from the proposed gains in safety by simply separating the restroom into 2, and not a transparent wall, an opaque wall, whatever that's constructed of, to separate it into 2 gender-specific restroom areas. So either of those options would work in these cases. So it's not too late.
I really like the wall thing, and then listing, this is a girls' bathroom, this is a boys', and a real wall. I'm sure you proposed that too. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what was the pushback on that?
Well, the same pushback that you've been hearing, right? That we're doing this for safety. No real answer to the gender question. The pushback also, I guess, would be around the fact that at this point it would cost a little money to make a change. It would cost a little money and a little time. Not kidding at all. No. So I argued
time for the most ridiculous things like this. Mm-hmm. This is such an important issue. So they're using financial as an excuse not to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in
one less now than it will later.
It will. You're right. In some cases, board members say, well, we don't want any delay or any extra funds because we're waiting for other projects that my constituents have been waiting for a long time. And, they just don't want to look at adding expense, right? I did argue that I believe this would be money well spent and time well spent. But that's where we are currently, is that they don't want to spend the money and they don't see it as an issue the same way that I do.
So, Kim, I'm sure that you have other board members that agree with you that are also seeing this. So, how is that? Like, are you 50-50? Like, what board members are supporting you?
Unfortunately, there's not much support from anybody at this point. I thought one of the other board members was, when we spoke privately, seemed to be on the same page, but when we discussed it in board meeting, they stated they supported the design. And so generally speaking, I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding from our conversations and from what they've said in public is that they support the design. They do not support a change. Doesn't mean that they can't be swayed, that their minds can't be changed, but that's where they are currently.
Okay. So what can we do? What can we, as I'm a teacher, I'm a parent and a grandparent. There are citizens out there listening to us. And by the way, I want to invite anyone who wants to call in, feel free. The number is 385-899-2134. I haven't asked Kim if you're willing to take calls. I know I'm willing to take calls. Anybody that wants to call in, I'm really happy to talk to you. Are you okay to take calls?
Absolutely.
Kim?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured you would, but I should ask permission. I apologize. So, okay, with that in mind, anyone that wants to call in, feel free. But what can we as citizens do to help board members see how important this is and how unprincipled and really dangerous it is to have bisexual bathrooms or, entrances? I know that they're going to say the stalls are one sex, but to commingle this, it's dangerous to the students. It's very dangerous to our culture. What can we do?
Well, what we can do as constituents is reach out to your board members and to your superintendent. Contact them by email, contact them by phone, talk to them in person, share your concerns, share why you feel it's not a good idea. They need to hear from as many people as possible. Otherwise, they do feel that this is what the community wants, right? If they don't, especially since I've been trying to bring a light to it, if the community does not react, then their assumption will be that this is what the community wants. So they need to hear from constituents. They need to hear from as many as possible.
Not to speak.
Come to the board meetings as well. Our next board meeting is December 10th. Sign up for public comment. Speak publicly about your concerns. That's the best way to try to make change, is to try to influence board members to hear and see where you're coming from and why this is not a good idea from your perspective. Hopefully, if there's enough of that some opinions will be swayed. We just need a majority. We don't need everybody to agree. Right. But if at least 3 other board members agree with me, we can direct a change. Unfortunately, though, if they don't agree, it comes down to, who are you voting for? When you're having elections, who are you supporting to run when you're looking for candidates? These are the kinds of things we should think about and ask our candidates when they are running, to try to ensure we have people in these positions who will support your values. So those are kind of the places we can try to make a difference. But I would strongly encourage reaching out, and obviously respectfully reaching out and just making your voice heard, and let them know what you'd like them to do about it. So yes, that would be my suggestion.
That is the best advice, because school board members are elected by the parents and the citizens, and schools impact and affect not just the students that go there, which is quite huge, which is a big deal. You're talking about children and their future lives. You're talking about, they are our future leaders. So what they grow up with and what they start to believe, the culture that they embrace affects them. And it does affect everyone who lives in that culture. And so it is very much time to stand up and do something. And we don't have to have everyone, but we do need to have people stand up and do something. So we are going to put up on the screen the phone number, the names, the phone numbers, and the email addresses of all of the school board members, so that if you take a snapshot with your camera, get these names and get these phone numbers and get their email addresses. I am asking every single person to please reach out do it politely, do it respectfully, but just explain to them how this is a very important issue. The other thing that we can do is, if you do not feel like you have resolution, I know everybody doesn't want to do this. I know it's a huge task, but if this is happening in your school, are you really going to leave your children in a school that is doing this? The schools also are full of pornography in the libraries. There's no denying it. There is. And we need to get the pornography out. We need to absolutely make a separation between boys and girls. We need to help these children. And so it is time. It is time to call them. It is time to have your voices heard. And if you feel like you're not getting resolution, it is totally fine to take your children out of school. I recommend it. I think it's a really great thing to do. We have to stand up. We have to speak out. We have to be heard. And nothing speaks like withdrawing your children. And I know it's not an easy, that's a heavy lift. I get it. But it's something to certainly consider and think about. They're just your children. What else matters to us? What else is more important than our children? And we have to remember our children, how they grow up and how they're impacted, what they get. They spend more time at school than they do at home with their parents. So what happens there impacts them, and it impacts their entire world perspective and their worldview. So it is really, really important. I feel like this is so important. And also because, keep in mind, this is not just simply Granite School District. This is absolutely, I can promise you, this is going to go to every single school in the state of Utah. And what happens in Utah does not stay in Utah. Other states look and they go, well, they did it in Utah. It can't be bad. Utah is such a very moral state, and they're very religious, and they're fine about it there. So, well, there's no reason not to do it in our state. And so what happens here does move across the country. If we can't hold the line, who is going to hold the line? We should be the examples here. We absolutely should be holding the line. This is not a heavy lift. This is not a whole line. Keep our bathrooms separate. Keep them private and separate from boys and girls. They need to be totally separate. I personally do not even like community sinks. I do not like that. That is a part of a girl's and a woman's space. I will just repeat the phone number if anybody wants to call in. Our number is 385-899-2134. Feel free to call in. Okay, Kim, I have a couple more questions. Do you have anything you want to add? Do you have something you're just dying to say and I just am yapping on?
No, I think you've done a great job of sharing all the details. So I don't think I have anything else to add at this point. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you have done the great job. You have done an excellent job of explaining it and educating us on this. I do want to ask, how have you had the stamina and the integrity to stand alone? I am so stunned that you are having to stand alone in this. I cannot believe it. Your superintendent is Ben Horsley. He is a father. He is a man who's always, I have seen him stand for the family, stand for right. I am so surprised he is not standing with you on this and standing with us and standing with the children. I haven't talked to him, and I will. I am looking forward to having a conversation, but I am surprised that you're standing alone, but I want to give kudos to you. And how are you doing it? What? You're a great
Well, I mean, thank you for the compliment. I feel it's not, I don't seek attention, and this kind of thing is not comfortable for me, to be perfectly honest. But I just feel it's part of the reason I ran to be a school board member in the first place.
Yes.
Is that I've seen our society appear to devolve around us. I've seen elected officials behave like it's a privilege for the public to be able to talk to them. I've seen things happening in our schools, in our society, that I've not been happy with personally. And I just came to the realization, finally, at this point in my life, that I cannot be an armchair critic. I can't sit on my couch and complain about things. If I want to see change, I need to be willing to do the work, right? And try to make that change myself. That's why I ran for school board in the first place. And so I ran on that premise. I have values that I'm going to stand for no matter what. And when I feel like those values are being, not upheld, I'm going to speak out. And that's just, I've decided that that's how I'm going to be, right, as a school board member. And so I've done a couple of interviews on this. I've put things out on Facebook. You take arrows, unfortunately, but it's got to be done. Somebody's got to do it. And so having, constituents in the public stand up and speak up as well would be immensely helpful in this situation. As far as our superintendent goes, I'm sure he will explain his viewpoint when you speak to him. Again, I can't speak for where he's coming from. To me,
nor
it
would
is
I
not
ask
right.
you to, nor would I expect you to. And he's very articulate. He's a very articulate man. He's very intelligent. I am looking forward to having a conversation with him about it, but I am just bewildered. And as well as all the school board members, I would think this would be, you would have 100% saying, no, this is not acceptable. This plan, whoever came up with it, this is not what we're going to do. It's not acceptable. And so I would ask everyone, please, this is eminent. This is really important because we do want to solve this issue before they get farther because it is less expensive. I am fiscally conservative. I would rather see us fix this problem now rather than later. I do not want to see girls get raped. I do not want to see children go in these private stalls and vape and smoke. And so I would ask everyone to, this is not a heavy lift. Write these phone numbers down and you can text them. You can call them. If you don't feel comfortable talking to them, which I hope you are, at least text them. They need to hear from you. And I can tell you one thing. If any of them, and Kim, I'll just let you answer this. If you got 100 phone calls or texts on a specific issue, would it have impact on you and your decision?
I absolutely would. I would say, with the exception of a moral value that I'm going to stand my ground on, no. But yes, impact, definitely. 100 emails, it would be, I've never received more than 15 to 20 emails on any individual topic. If we could have 100, 200 emails, people coming to board meetings, speaking up, I think that would definitely have an impact.
It would have an impact. Okay, so the board meeting is December 10th, and that's at the Granite School District.
Granite Education Center on State Street.
Education Center on State Street. Okay, I know where that is.
Yeah.
That's December 10th. We need citizens to show up. Be ever so polite. Be ever so respectful. This is a very difficult and very emotional issue that we can get really passionate on, but it's really important to be effective and to be listened to and to be respected. We need to be respectable and we need to be respectful of others. So I ask everyone to please be respectful, but just go and share the importance of this issue and say, let's take a stand now. Plus, I would also ask everyone to go to your own school district. Now is the time to stand up and speak out and say, we need to make sure this does not happen in our school district and our community. So, is there anything else that you would like to? Oh, I did want to give everyone, I feel so passionately about this. I feel so strongly about it that if you don't get the list, because it is now, but if you're not able to get all the numbers, I have all the numbers and I have all the emails. Feel free to text me 801-330-0303. If you text me, I can text you the list and send it right over to you. So I want to get this out to everyone, and I'm just asking everyone to just do something about it. And I know December 10th is not the most convenient time, but if we're really people who celebrate Christmas, what did Christ do? He stood and he spoke the truth. What better way to celebrate Christmas than to be a guardian of your liberty, a guardian and a protector of your children, your grandchildren, and your neighbors' children, than to stand up and say, in honor of Christ, in honor of righteousness, in honor of goodness, in honor of protecting our own children, we ask you respectfully to put that wall between them, make it totally separate, to distinguish between boys and girls. And there's nothing wrong with having a bathroom that is, it can be a family bathroom that anyone of any sex can go into that is separate, but it needs to be completely separate and not in a girl space and not in a boy space. We see this. We go to event centers and community centers all the time, and they have transitioned to that where you have family spaces. So a mom can take her children, a dad can take their children, or someone who suffers from gender dysphoria, who is not comfortable in being in the boys' bathroom or not comfortable being in the girls' bathroom and has no business being in the opposite's bathroom, can go in and have that private space. And so that is how we are standing for right, doing what is right, and being very respectful and very considerate of those people who are confused and suffering from gender dysphoria or whatever problem they're suffering from. So thank you. Thank you, Kim. Do you have any last minute thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Just a reminder, reach out, make your thoughts known. And again, if the conversation comes back to behavior, how does combining the genders address that? It does not. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because that's what the school board members that I have talked to, they go, well, we're really concerned about the safety of students. I'm like, if you're concerned about safety, why would you do this? This seems like this would be less safe. And they're like, no, we think this will be better. But again, you've got your other bathrooms, other facilities. It's just not lining up together. This is not a really reasonable way. And they are going to have cameras, so they're going to surveil everyone. And that's an issue unto itself, which I will be honest, I'm not really into that. But I mean, maybe there's a good reason for it. I just don't really like the idea of, surveilling common areas, fine. Hallways, fine. I'm not really excited about having surveillance in bathrooms. That really seems super inappropriate to me.
Well, I agree. And I think all of that deserves to be vigorously debated. The floor-to-ceiling stalls, the glass, the cameras, all of that. But again, if we can just keep coming back to that central point and not be, distracted from that by the discussion of behavior, the central point is combining boys and girls does not do anything to address the behavior issues. And that is not necessary and shouldn't be done. And that's the bottom line. So
it should not be done anywhere, and especially here in Utah. Kim, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, and I so appreciate your work and standing up. And I think it's really just so fascinating that your last name is Chandler. I know you're married and have 3 children, so it's your husband's last name, but it's your name now. But for those of you who don't know what Chandler means, it means it's a candle maker. It's the name of a candle maker and a soap maker. And I just think it's very ironic and really very beautiful and poetic that Kim Chandler, with the last name of Chandler, is bringing light, is shining light on the darkness, and being a beacon of light to our state school, or to our local school board, the Granite School Board, and to the community. And so thank you so much for doing that, for bringing light to the darkness. Thank you for living up to your name, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment to goodness. And we just really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whole day. I want to remind everyone, please get on. Please get those phone numbers and email addresses. Please reach out. Please plan December 10th. Put it in your journals. Put it in your day timers. Put it on your calendar. December 10th. What time is that board meeting?
7 p.m. If you want to sign up for public comment, you can just sign up the day before by reaching out to Ben Horsley.
And you have to give them kudos. I love the fact that their board meeting is at 7 p.m., not 4 p.m. when they know no one can attend, or hardly anyone. It's at 7 p.m., designed to make it accessible for parents and community members to go to the board meeting. And you can sign up the day before, not 2 weeks before. Again, they're being very respectful of the parents there, and that, I think we should give them credit for that. That says a lot. All school boards do not do that. So I'm thrilled with that. So December 10th, 7 p.m. Thank you, Kim. We will look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Great day. Thank you.
You too.